Beletrina, v živo.
Ja, lepo pozdravljeni, drage bralke, dragi bralci. Danes sem dan začela s poezijo, s prav posebno pesniško zbirko, ki bo zdaj izšla pri Beletrini. Njen naslov je Teorija praznine, pesnik pa prihaja z Poljske. Tomasz Różycki se nam bo pravkar pridružil.
Ja, dober dan, dober dan.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Not just a good start of a day, it's a good start of your collections of poems, which is going to be published very soon in Slovenia for the first time, your poems in the Slovenian language. And talking about the first poem, I think it's a good start of a collection like that, because it tells a lot of this notion, the feeling that goes through your poetry as a fil rouge, this melancholy. I think it's very symptomatic, the poem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the first of my poems, and I have to say that I changed, of course, my mind during those years, and I was very young when I wrote this one. But yes, you're right. This is a very melancholic, nostalgic in a way atmosphere in the poem, and it permeates. I think it's present in almost every of my books later on. And yes, I started with this feeling because it was really the end of the century. So I started with this feeling that something ends, but in the same time, of course, as we know very well, it starts again. There is something new coming, but this very special melancholic atmosphere and feeling was a central one in this story, let's say, but because all those poems from the first books, they are trying to tell a story about the Central Europe in a way. So it's connected. You mentioned Krakow, and it's connected with this feeling because I went to start my studies in Krakow at that time. And it was a special moment in my life because all my family, although I live in Silesia and Polish region, but all my family went from Galicia, and after the Second World War, they were deported from Lviv, Lemberg, Lwów, whatever. It's a Galician town, and Krakow as well. So I felt a little bit of this atmosphere of the Central European connections between many languages, many cultures, and a history, which is very present still. When you go to Krakow, you can feel it in the air.
I'm actually so happy we started the day with poetry and with Krakow, which is one of my favorite cities. I've been traveling throughout Poland a lot as a journalist as well, and being in Krakow on one of the central squares, I remember this beautiful monument dedicated to Mickiewicz, of course, and being yourself a Polish poet, it does come with a very heavy heritage, doesn't it? Being a poet in Poland, especially in a country which was erased several times from the map, it seems that the role of literature and poetry is very important for the Polish people and the history.
Yes, it's true, but it's very tricky in a way because you can be a rebel when you start to write poetry in Polish. You can choose to be a rebel against this tradition, against this call to arms, let's say, which is horrible, of course. And you can revolt yourself against it, and you can continue in a way. Of course, I was trying to find this this way in the middle, just not to be too much involved in this historical themes, topics, traditional Polish writing. But I think that what we call today the Polish school of poetry, let's say it's still only a kind of metaphor to define in a way some style of writing which is trying to be reference to historical events and poetry of Miłosz, for example, of Szymborska or Herbert or Różewicz, even when they are talking about the Polish history, but in a very distant way sometimes, but still this poetry is called a witness of the century, for example, witness of a history. So this is this Polish tradition, but in the same time, we have in Poland many young people, wonderful poets, which they disagree with this Polish school of poetry, and then are trying to be completely independent, completely different, and say something against it, and saying something in a free way, in a free way of expression, let's say. And it's tricky because when you are repeating this Polish the steps of Polish school of poetry, you are in a trap. That's how you can be in a trap. But when you are a rebel, you can be in a trap as well. So it's in Poland sometimes it's very difficult to find the position, because this Polish poetry tradition is so powerful and so great that it submerged the others, let's say, spaces with and the other spaces are still in the shadow of this big figures of Polish poetry.
So still nowadays in the 21st century, you had this interesting expression. You said, yeah, I'm caught in the middle between these two notions in Polish poetry. So where do you see the role of poetry yourself?
Actually, it's a very private question, I think, because I don't, this middle, it's, I have this is a very difficult question to say. What is the role of poetry? Of course, in a way, I think that all artistic expression of human being, it's a fight with the time, because we are mortal. We are trying to fight against this time and to say that there is something more, and we will leave something after us, and it's let's say it's a kind of a scream or song that we are mortal and we know it, but we are trying to live. We are a living creature, and this is the life, and we are still alive. So it's a very private, it's a very personal, but in the same time, when we are the witness, or when we are like even now, there is a war in Ukraine, and I have a lot of friends fighting there or dying there even, and the horrible scenes I can hear about or I can see. So this is still the question: if the poetry can be kind of a voice given to the others and offer to the others, and can be a witness of what is happening now in a reality. So not that much in a political way, but in a in a human, just existential way.
Existential way. Yeah, I'm not, I can't go through your book because it isn't ready yet. I'm scrolling actually through an online version of the collection of poems, which is going to be published very soon. And we read your poems from different collections, from Vaterland, Bralke. I'm using now the Slovenian translation, which sounds really nice. It's a beautiful work by Jane Unuk, who did the translation into the Slovenian language from Polish. And yes, mentioning the role of the poetry, wherever I go in your poems, it does seem you really have this intense sense of details, like it's really telling the truth. Being exact is a very, very important thing in poetry, isn't it?
Yes. I think that this is one of the main topics, one of the main issues, actually, that concerns me last time. So I have right to. I'm able to write about something only when I experience that thing, that event, or that moment personally. So, for example, there is in one of my last collections, there is a poem from Cairo, and in Cairo you have this garbage city, a district where which is built actually on a garbage, and a lot of people are working there, and a lot of children work there to recycle those garbages and create something new, let's say. But they are living there, and it's a very powerful impression when you go there and see. So, and last time I was reading this poem, and one of my friends asked me, why did you read it? Write it? Why did you write it? Actually, have you ever been to Cairo? And I said, yes. This is true. I experienced this situation. I saw it. So this is my concern. I have to see something, or even be close to this thing to write a poem. Of course, there is a huge, in my poetry, I can imagine there is a huge field of imagination. But imagination helps a lot to create a situation, and in a fabular way, in a narrative way, sometimes to create the frames of the scene, but imagination is not a fantasy. I mean, imagination can develop something which is real, which is existent, your emotion or your feeling, but based on a reality. And fantasy is something different completely. You can create something completely new and completely unreal in a way. I don't know. It's about those details. It's maybe not an answer to your question, but yeah, I am trying to be precise in this way. Although, of course, many critics are saying that my poetry is very, very how to say, imaginary work of imagination, not that much connected to the reality, social reality, for example, or political reality in Poland and Europe.
But you've been working as a translator for many, many years. You've been translating French authors as well. Is it as well kind of a little bit of escapism away from the Polish tradition or this heavy tradition that you were mentioning, going into another world of French literature? This is one part of the question. And then how thin is the line for you between poetry and translation? Is it easier to translate if you're a poet?
This is actually a very good question, and for me it's very interesting. I'm not able to answer probably to this question in a proper way, but I will try. So this French touch, let's say this French touch in a poetry, it was something very appealing for me because of this freedom, liberty, and I thought that it is different from the Polish poetry, of course, because what I liked in a French poetry, for example, I liked a lot of this love poetry, love poems, and many of my poems, I think a lot of them are about the emotion, about the love, and about traveling as well. And I thought that maybe it is a possibility to find this kind of freedom of expression, to have this very large field of themes and topics I can explore. And now I will try to tell something about the translation. And the translation, it's for me very special moment, because I consider it as to giving a voice to somebody else, and to somebody else very different from me. And it can be a difference between the languages. Of course, it is between the languages at the first place, because it's for example, it's French and into Polish. But it can be a distance not only between the languages, but and the space, France and Poland, but only in time, because it can be somebody who is already dead for the century, and I'm translating somebody who is not able to speak. So I have to speak for this person. And let's say that it is not a male poet, but a female poet, for example. And so you have another border to cross, in fact. And like the word translatio, it's transporting something across the border. So you can smuggle a little bit, not only the words, and not only from one language to another, but from one time, one century to another century, and from one race to another race. Let's say it's not a French, or let's say it may be a black person, for example, and so on and so on. So from male to female, from female to male, and so you are transporting something which is very different, and you are giving to this thing your body, your voice, because to translate you have to write it down in a way that is similar to the original. So to create the same thing, the same poem, the similar poem. You have to use your own voice, your own context, and your own life experience, and so on, to imagine the reality of the original, and to try to imitate the voice of the original. And this voice needs to pass through your own mouth, through your own mind as well. So it's like a giving a voice to the dead people. I don't know. It's like a giving a voice to another, because even when you read something on paper or whatever, on a reader, in a very act of reading, even it's a mute reading, you are reading for yourself, there is kind of a voice in your head that it's reading, and you can hear this voice. It's your own voice, of course, but it's in a way it's unpersonal. It's something very, very, very strange, and then so for every reading there is a voice who reads it. So for the translation you have to give a voice to the letters you see on the white page, to some combination of the letters. I like this. You have this two of very known and popular definition of poetry. One by Robert Frost, which is very tricky, of course, that the poetry is what is lost in translation. And I like it very much. But I prefer the other, because it's not, of course, it's very true, but it's not true, like all this metaphorical definition of poetry. You create some metaphor just to say that you don't know what is it, how to explain it. So and it's very nice metaphor. And another metaphor, it's by Coleridge, that the poetry is the best word in a best order. So I prefer another one just to as a counterpart to this to the definition of Frost, because I think that you are able as a translator to create the same machine. Let's say that the poem is a machine, the best word in a best order. It's kind of a vehicle, and you can like a bike, and you can run with this bike as a reader. You're a reader. You can see a poem, and you can take a ride with this poem. And when you are a translator, you have to build another bike, because you have some parts and you are smuggling those parts across the border, and then you have to create your own vehicle. But you don't have any, any book of instruction how to do it. So.
But it's actually, Tomasz, it's actually very nice that we gave some time to our translators as well, because we sometimes forget what a very important work and profession this is after all. Tomasz, this is actually just the beginning of a new friendship with Polish poets and literature, hopefully. So see you very, very soon in Ptuj. What wine should we prepare for you? What does go well with your poetry? Red, white?
Dry, but white and red, it goes very well. Of course, dry one. I like Slovenian. It's you have a very nice white wines. I know it, and I'm very happy.
I'm sure it goes very well with your poetry as well. Thank you so much for your time. See you soon in Slovenia. In tako smo skupaj za vas prelistali pesniško zbirko Teorijo praznine, ki bo zdaj izšla pri Beletrini. Z nami se je pogovarjal pesnik Tomasz Różycki. Thank you so much.
Beletrina, uživo.